before it became an organisation which is based in north, south, east, and west. So I used to travel from West London all the way to North London to take part in sessions over there, and it's been a full circle moment for me. So the pivotal moment was basically going from mentee to becoming a mentor. Going on that journey is really enabling me to take a lot of what I saw. You know, we speak about this motto that we've got, what they see is what they'll be. So I was able to take, you know, all of what I saw my mentors doing and kind of instill that in my own personal mentoring journey.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a good Friday. Welcome to our Build Your Education talks, taken over by the next generation. For those of you who don't know, my name is Vanessa Cravor. I am 19 years old, and I've been on the 100 Black Men of London's program for the last 10 years now. And I'm currently a peer mentor working with the 100. So welcome. I hope you enjoy your time today. So I'm your host for today. So I just want to introduce everyone else who's going to introduce themselves. So first, Abigail.
Hi, my name's Abigail. I'm 16. I am, I'm also a member of the Peer Mentors.
Oh, next up, we have Adam.
Hello, my name is Adam Stewart, and I'm currently 18, and I'm also a peer mentor at the 100 Black Men of London.
Next up, we have Aminette.
Hi, I'm Aminette. I'm 19, and I'm a peer mentor at the 100 Black Men of London.
Dominic.
Hello, my name is Dominic Oyaligan, and I am a peer mentor at the 100 Black Men of London.
And last but certainly not least, Jonas.
Thank you. My name is Jonas Andrew Phillip. I'm 19 years old, and I am a peer mentor for the 100 Black Men of London also.
Lovely. So we're just going to dive right into today's talks with the first question. The first question is, how has COVID affected your education or career progression? So who wants to kick that off? Oh, I'm going to pick. Adam, you should go first.
Thank you. So yeah, for me, COVID it was quite hard in terms of education at the start. I know because we kind of went straight from being in the classroom every single day, being able to receive teacher feedback probably quite instantaneously, to then literally going home to not being able to communicate as easily with the teachers. And then like kind of towards that middle of it, like the last lockdown we had, because we weren't in school at all, I felt as if I was literally on the lesson, but my mind was actually in the lesson. And it wasn't only until I kind of said, okay, like it's kind of up to me now to kind of help myself, otherwise, because teachers aren't going to be there spoon feeding me. So it was only until I kind of took that decision amongst myself, was when my like grades started to then go back to what they were at before COVID kind of started. And then also outside of school now, I think it's helped me a lot in terms of self-discipline. It's allowed me to develop a lot more skills, I would say, learn more about myself, develop skills in terms of like my fitness as well. Beforehand, as soon as COVID started, my face started getting a lot bigger, started to put on a lot of weight, and then diet started changing. I was like, okay, how do I kind of get back in shape? And then I just started changing my diet, running a lot more, and yeah, trying to be as healthy as possible. But yeah, COVID has, towards the end, it's definitely helped me, I would say.
I completely agree. I feel like it's been quite difficult in terms of COVID to kind of have a different routine, but at the same time having to stay focused on your education. Does anyone else have something to add? Aminette?
I think it's been a bit of an adjustment period, because I've gone from going into uni every day, doing my lectures and labs, and I think I've lost a certain amount of and I suppose you've lost, because you lose that contact time and you lose the practical element of the degree. It's been a bit of a struggle, but it has forced me to like learn how to structure and timetable my time, and it's given me the opportunity to really take charge of my education, which I have actually appreciated.
Before we continue, could everyone just kind of highlight where they are in their educational journey, if they're in school or outside of school and things like that? So if you just go around again. So Abigail, if you could just highlight where you are in your educational journey.
I'm in sixth form. I'm currently in year 12.
Okay. Adam?
So I'm also in sixth form, final year in year 13.
Aminat?
I'm in the second year of my degree.
Dominic?
I'm in year 11, doing my GCSEs. My assessments that are supposed to replace my GCSEs in 2 weeks.
Okay. And Jonas?
Yeah, so I'm actually working. I finished an apprenticeship recently, actually, but yeah, I'm working.
Okay. And I'm in my first year of university. So just continuing with that question, in terms of Corona and your education, Jonas, how do you think it's impacted your education or your career progression?
So for me, it did make an impact, but it kind of did help me at the same time. So it's like, it's done both for me. So it's given me more time to think and really strategize for what I want to do. However, it has held back with the education part of it, which then links to kind of to the career. So essentially what happened was that because of COVID, due to my apprenticeship, what was happening was that the provider would come to me and coach me on my coursework. It was barely happening before the course, to be honest, they weren't really coming. But then when COVID came, it's like, as Aminette said, all that connection was gone. There wasn't really one before. It was quite difficult before, but it got even worse. And then it really slowed down my progress with it. But then again, I had to say to myself, what am I going to do to ensure that I actually still get this? Because I think that's something that I always had in me, but I wanted to exhibit it on a higher level. So then I said to myself, okay, cool, I gotta start doing my coursework on weekends. I shouldn't have to, but I gotta start doing that now. I gotta start staying to work late. I gotta start asking people questions and work more regarding this, because I don't have a coach like other apprentices around the country would have. So it did slow me down in terms of my education, and career-wise, it helped me, but then it didn't at the same time, because I want to start a business now, what I technically have. But the thing is that clients aren't as open to paying, not because I'm young, but because we're in a recession. So that's made it quite difficult to get my foot off the ground. I still have people that want to pay and have told me they'll pay, but I could have more, but beggars can't be choosers at the end of the day.
Yeah. I feel like I can kind of relate to that as well in terms of looking for work experience and looking for internships and things to do in the summer. There's lots of jobs that just aren't happening right now, which is quite difficult because of the pandemic. In terms of my educational journey and the impact that COVID has had, I was the first year who didn't take the exams, so they had the government U-turn, which was quite difficult because there was a long wait in between where we finished school and where we got our exam results and got our university decisions. I think that, like, for loads of people my age, created lots of anxiety, and the gap between finishing school and actually going into university and starting like your own degree, I think that gap was really disruptive, because you hadn't done work in such a long time. Writing the first essay, for example, was like completely daunting and really, really scary. But we've come so far. I feel like last year, like at the beginning of the pandemic, it feels like it was such a long time ago, and I feel like so much has changed. But I feel like it's all made us very resilient at the same time. It's a really interesting time to be living through. I think we're going to move on to the next question if no one else has anything else to add. So the next question is, how does the school system help you with your future? And we'll kick it off with Jonas. How do you think the school system helps with your future?
Yeah, for me, I think that the school system helps with your future because it actually enables you to, before I even say that, actually, the funny thing is when I look back at school, it's funny because I dropped out of college in year 12 to do an apprenticeship. So by that point, I already did a lot. I did that differently to so many of my peers, even though it was the best decision for me and it has paid off. But I remember when teachers used to tell me, Jonas, you may not like that student, but I have to work with so many people I don't like. And when I got into the working world, there were so many people that despised each other where I worked, and they would openly tell me, I don't like that person, Jonas, I hate them, da 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 da. And I was like, wow. And there was even people I didn't like. And I said to myself, this is actually setting me up. That was setting me up well for this, because on the school scale, teachers can handle it, but on the work scale, managers and whoever's running the organization or the school, whatever, they won't want to handle it, because they're just like, you know what, you guys are adults, get on with it yourself. So that helped me there. And also with social skills too, and being able to become independent as well, because I wasn't that guy in school that was popular until about year 11. That's when I got popular. I don't even know how it happened, but it just happened somehow. But in my prior years to year 11, it was quite tough, especially being an only child in a single parent household. There's not many people I could communicate with, but it did teach me how to really communicate with people and how to conduct myself in times where life was getting hard. So being around young people in that position and seeing how different young people's lives were helped me in that sense. And that's how I feel that it helped me with my future. It's a different take that everyone's going to say. So I just said that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like everyone has different educational experiences. Cool. Next up, we have Dominic.
I think that the school system provides the foundation you need to get a job by providing teamwork skills and planning, time, and organization. Because that without it, people may lack the social skills they need to work in a workplace environment, and they wouldn't be able to work with other people or form close working relationships as well as they would if they didn't have school.
Okay. I feel like that's an interesting point, because I feel for some, maybe the school environment might not be the best environment to kind of harness all the skills that you have. And I feel like lots of people in the 100, for example, don't necessarily dream of labor or dream to have a job, but dream of something large or have their own business or career. But I do feel like the school system definitely teaches you some core skills such as communication, like maths and things like that, which you do need in your everyday life. But at the same time, I've definitely benefited from the school system. Like I go to the University of Cambridge, which means that I did good throughout my whole school career. And I think without having that kind of guidance and being like put in good, having good opportunities and having the guidance from my teachers and things like that, I don't think I would be in the same position that I am today. But on the flip side, it seems to be that many people don't have the same experiences. But Abigail, do you have anything to say on this question?
I would say that school teaches you organization and timing skills, because the way that we get homework and we have to go to school at a specific time, and you have to leave your house at specific times as well. So that's core skills for life in general as well, because when you're going to like interviews or when you're going to work or something, you need to stick to an original time, and you agree with your manager for these sort of things. So and doing like your talks that you're given, you have to organize yourself to do it well, properly.
Adam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just for me, I think just because my school is a little bit more smaller, probably more smaller than all of the schools. So like because it's so close in it, I believe that we have a better relationship, should I say, or better like communication with our teachers. So I know many people that went to our school, they were able to kind of attain like good jobs or good jobs after completing their sixth form, because the teachers had, whether it be someone within their network, so teachers will actually be able to aid them with their career progression a lot more smoother than if it was a massive school. Another thing I would say is more of the soft skills, so the teamwork, the communication, the skills that you will kind of need at any sort of career path you decide to go down, whether that be in the working world or whether that be you're starting your own business, etc. And yeah, they also teach you things like timekeeping and other things that you're definitely going to need for the real world. Yeah, but obviously there can be stuff that it does lack, but for the most part, I would say that it has helped.
What do you think the school system does lack? Just like adding on to that, we've talked about how it kind of increases your communication skills, teamwork skills, some core skills that you think that we need. But what do you think that the school system is lacking?
I think,
anyone?
Just to kind of touch on to what I was saying, I think it kind of lacks leadership. I think the school system, personally, from what I've seen anyway, is that as Dominic was kind of touching on, he's saying that it trains you to be a great employee. Not knocking that, but yeah, it doesn't kind of teach you to kind of think for yourself. It's almost as if it's designed in a way that yes, you can thrive in the working world, but you thrive working under someone as opposed to you're thriving and being independent or going other routes. And I feel like it's kind of almost frowned upon when someone is only coming more now, like if I'm saying I was doing an apprenticeship, but beforehand it'll be like, oh, you should go to university. So it's like school already designs a path for you to kind of follow as opposed to create a path for yourself, if that makes sense. And yeah, that's one of the things I think it lacks.
Jonas?
Yeah, just to add quickly to what Adam said, I remember I said drop out earlier, but it's not really dropping out because you're going for a job where you're getting the same qualification. But I remember when I did it, the majority of people that I came across told me, don't do it, you're gonna regret it, da 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 da. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense because firstly, you're not me. Secondly, I'm gonna be learning how to manage my money while getting the same qualification. I'm not gonna be in debt. I'm gonna have proper work experience. So obviously people can go down uni if they want to. Everyone's different. So nobody can tell anybody not to do something. But even right now, the stigma around apprenticeships and not going to uni has got better. But still, when I talk about it, whether it's young people or adults, they'll be like, what, Jonas, you dropped out? What? Like it's some big thing. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. It's normal, to be honest. Look at all the people that are successful that did it. But yeah, that's definitely a stigma that I feel that has been created by a lot of people, and they haven't been saying it, but they've kind of been acting in a way towards people that didn't go down the traditional route. So then it's embedded in people's head that that's not the right way to go, and there's something wrong with you if you did do that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Aminette, do you have anything else to add?
I think for me, the thing that schools lacked most was life skills. And as much as you could argue that life skills are jobs of parents, we also, I think it's become glaringly obvious, probably you've noticed at uni, Vanessa, the level of things people understand are at 18, 19, who in theory are adults, in comparison to other people, because there's a massive disparity in terms of just simple things like being able to cook, being able to clean. And I think there's an element where it is schools' responsibility to bridge that gap to a certain extent in terms of finance and money management, because it's not because of my mum and who she is that I understand the concept of a mortgage and rent and building up good credit, but someone else might not, whose parents might not be as knowledgeable in those things, and so then there's no one to pass on to that knowledge for them, and it means that they might make a decision now or maybe in 2-3 years time that will affect them for the next decade. And I think if schools could make it more of a priority to bridge that gap, I think it would benefit a lot of children from the age of 18 all the way up to their 30s, 40s, because the things that I've learned and the things that I've gained an understanding of now will serve me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, definitely. Abigail, do you have anything else to add?
I would say that the school system is lacking about how people consider education like a measure for your success. As in, people talk about how if you get good grades, you're obviously going to succeed in life, but that's not always the case. Like how Aminette, she was talking about how the school doesn't teach you about life skills, because there's lots of people who didn't do well in school and then in the future they succeed in life because they've got other skills that aren't necessarily maths and science focused. They think about other stuff. I'm not sure exactly what the word is, but they just use other skills that aren't school-based subjects.
Dominic?
Adding on to what Abigail and Aminette said, you lack real-life scenarios such as applying for jobs, bank loans, increasing your credit score, as well as knowing what will decrease your credit score and how you pay taxes. While people could go, after they turn 18, they could go maybe years committing tax fraud without knowing until they get fined and they don't know what to do.
I think kind of to add on to everything that everyone else has said, I think that school kind of lacks harnessing people's individuality. I feel like you're put into the school system And because they have so many kids to get through, they have so many people who they need to like just get through the system, get the certain grades and things like that. I feel like it's really difficult for schools to kind of pick out individuals and harness their talents in the best way possible. So I think that's really what the school system lacking, because if they have kind of the understanding, or if they just had the time to kind of find out what everybody wants to do so they can put them in the best positions for their future, I think that would be a much more productive school system. But obviously, like, we just don't have the means to do that right now. But yeah, to move on to the next question, how do you think the school system can help with your, oh wait, sorry, wrong question. To what extent do you think education affects your future? That's the next question. Jonas, you can start.
Yeah, so when we're talking about formal and informal education, I feel that everyone's going to assume that I'm going to say, because I'm the one that didn't finish school, everyone's going to assume I'm going to say, oh, school thing doesn't matter. But school actually does teach you good stuff in lessons like English skills, some things in maths. Science is extremely important. There's a lot of stuff that school teaches you which are important. And this is coming from a kid that didn't enjoy school. So the fact that I'm saying it means that I'm not saying that school's perfect, because the system's far from perfect, but there are certain things that you learn which are important. The majority of them, not so much, but still, regardless, you got to be grateful that you're learning stuff for free at the end of the day. But education as in school education can take you to a certain point, but educating yourself will take you to the next level. So that means, as we said, life skills, personal development, money management, stuff like this, because there's a reason that you don't get taught stuff like that in school. I'm not going to go into the reason, but people know the reason. So instead of really, this is my opinion on it, instead of people saying all the time, school should teach me this, school should teach you that, you kind of need to just say to yourself, how about I just become accountable for myself and go out and learn these things? Maybe it shouldn't be your responsibility, but you can't control the fact that they're not going to teach you this stuff. So at the end of the day, thing that separates the people that are extremely successful, not just a bit successful, extremely successful, even though success is based on opinion, but these people are the ones that said, I'm going to take responsibility for my education and take my learning to the next level, not just relying on what the teachers taught me and the education system wants to teach me. But the people that stay at a point where they're not really satisfied with their life, it's because most of the time it's because they just said, oh, why couldn't they teach me this? Why couldn't they teach me that? So I think that's just food for thought for people on that. That's my perspective on it.
Adam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jonas. And yeah, even just to kind of add on, I remember there's a saying like that, self-education will make you a fortune, but formal education will make you a living. In the sense that I think for me, I think a lot of things I have learned have also come from school, but I think where even like skills that are not so common, like public speaking or even like self-confidence, and you were talking about individuality. I think that also comes when you begin to identify who you are as a person. And you can only really do that. School can't really teach you. That's something you have to kind of go home and reflect on. And that means that you're not taking on self-education. So for me, I think what's also allowed me to grow has been through the guidance of mentors, and also from reading books. I believe that reading has actually taught a lot about myself and a lot about my mind and how it works and how I can actually begin to whether it be reaching goals or books on self-development and how I can actually grow as a person. And these are some of the skills that I would never learn in a classroom environment. So I do believe that education should always go beyond school, because if you're just waiting for 18 years of your life and saying, okay, after 18 I'll finish school and finish with learning, then like I don't think you're growing at all. And there's also another saying that if you're not growing, then you're dying. And I don't know about you, but I want to continue. So yeah.
Definitely. Abigail, anything to add?
No, not really.
Okay, Dominic?
I think that education can control your future as long as you let it. If you don't try and take the first step to grabbing a hold of what you want to do, you end up where you don't want to be, whether it's a job you don't like or you're doing something repetitively that you want to stop doing, you can either decide to educate yourself and try and avoid doing it and find a different path for yourself, or you can just continue doing it and get swept away just like everyone else. Whether you want to take hold of it and be your own individual, or you want to keep on working under a corporate environment, it's your choice to make.
Aminette?
I think without stating the obvious, education teaches you how to learn. And I think the ability to acquire knowledge, whether it's through formal education or through informal, will carry you through life. Because I think even for me, as much as I've gone down a very formal route of education, a lot of my other elements of my knowledge have come from being able to read, from understanding how to do research and looking at sources. And those are all things that I've learned from school. And so even though sometimes, and I think especially what Jonas was talking about, individual responsibility in terms of in terms of stuff that maybe the school curriculum doesn't focus on now, it does teach you how to obtain those parts of your knowledge. So
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with that. The extent to which in school you're kind of taught to learn. I feel like we take that for granted. Like, we think that the ability to understand, the ability to read, for example, is something we really take for granted, because there are lots of people who are just illiterate, and in that they're not able to access higher forms of knowledge. They're not able to go out and do their own thing. So I think we do take that for granted. And in terms of education, I feel like education does come from everywhere. It's not necessarily just formal education. It's not necessarily just institutional education, but education of your self-knowledge, self-image, things like that. In terms of what the 100 does, for example, the 100 educates us in life skills that we're not taught at school. And I think the kind of yearning for knowledge is something that will impact your future more, because if you're always open to learning, always open to wanting to know more, rather than just staying where we are, or just rather than accepting what the world has given to you, rather than kind of going out and reaching, as I like, it might sound cliche, but like reaching for the stars. I think that's how education can impact your future. But on the flip side, in terms of if you want to do be like a doctor or something like that, then of course, like, there are steps that you have got to take to be put in those positions. So I think it really depends on the type of person you are and what you really want to do with your life. Does anyone else have anything to add, or should we move on to the next question? Okay, let's move on to the next question. Hold on. Which is, how do you think school shapes your identity? We've already slightly touched on it, but we'll just go into more on this one. How do you think school shapes your identity? We'll start with Jonas again.
Cool. So for me, I think that school, firstly, in my opinion, your experience throughout your childhood shapes the backbone for who you are as you grow up. So, for example, for me, I didn't have the best childhood. However, it's made me very resilient and very driven to and motivated. And these aren't things that people would describe me to be while I was in school. However, it's something that's been built and I always had within me, and I always knew I had, but I chose not to because I wasn't enjoying school. However, I feel that school shapes who you are because you're really learning who you are as well. I know they don't do self-identity lessons, but think about it. You're going through puberty while you're going through school. You're growing up. You're watching your peers grow up. You're seeing your teachers get a bit older. Your teachers are watching you grow up. So all is growing and learning. So you're learning about yourself. You're learning, wait, am I really confident in this situation? Am I really confident in that situation? Do I like writing? Do I like science? Do I like drama? So you actually are learning about yourself, but people don't feel that way because a lot of people feel forced to go to school. So in reality, that shapes who you are. And then even your interactions with your peers or teachers, maybe you interact better with your teachers than your peers. So maybe you actually are more of a mature person than you are for your age. Or maybe you don't do that at all. Maybe you don't talk to anybody. Maybe you're introverted. So you are really learning about yourself while you're there. And it can change throughout the years and you can become obviously a better person. You may become worse, unfortunately, but that's how it is. And I feel that's how school shapes your identity.
Aminette?
I think in terms of your identity, depending on the type of experience you have, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword because for me, I've had mostly positive experiences at school, and it's enabled me to figure out a very distinct career path for what I want to do. And it's not only that, but it also meant that I was put in a position where I was able to massively increase that knowledge because because when I got to sixth form, I started studying psychology and I absolutely loved it. And I'm doing a degree in psychology now. But also there were extra opportunities from that my psychology teacher gave me in terms of in terms of being able to go to different universities and do lectures in year 12 and year 13 and to get that an increased understanding of different elements of it, to be able to visit mental health facilities. And so for me, it pushed me onwards and it encouraged me even further. But I know that I've also had certain negative experiences that could have massively derailed me in terms of comments from teachers and certain adults' behavior towards me, especially as a very young child. And I think it didn't have as much of a negative effect of me because in certain environments, my mum was very careful to remove me from them. But on the other hand, I can also understand how, especially as Black people, other kids having those experiences will massively derail them because getting kicked out of school or getting excluded at a young age can send your life down a completely different path and massively destroy you. So I do think it has a very distinct effect on your identity, but it just depends what kind of experiences you have whilst you're at school.
Dominic?
You already have an identity before going into school, but school can help you develop it and may change it slightly because the people you surround yourself with in school can determine how you grow, especially as it's a very impressionable point in your life. Whether you're hanging around bad people or good people that encourage you to be better and to be the best version of yourself, can help you to continuously grow or can help you fall behind. So it does play a large part in shaping your identity for the future.
Abigail?
Yeah, I would say that school influences your identity because you learn how to deal with certain situations. But I feel like school is your first sign of independence because you have to make friends by yourself. You have to do your homework by yourself, and you can't really rely on other people to do it for you. So yeah, I just feel like it's and by how you deal with doing all of that by yourself is how it lends into your future.
I feel like education plays a part in forming your identity. Obviously, you spend your kind of formative years in the education system, but I don't think it's necessarily the first thing that shapes your identity. I think that comes from the home. In terms of knowing who you are as a person, I feel like the first kind of people who teach you that is your parents or whoever's in your home environment. For example, when I was a child, I would get black baby dolls, for example, or I'd be encouraged to go. I literally went on Black History walks and things like that. So in terms of shaping who I am as a person, I wouldn't say that school necessarily shaped my identity in that sense. But in terms of my kind of academic identity, I see myself as an academic. I'm studying history. I feel like that's kind of different. In terms of my identity of like what I enjoy studying and things like that, I think then, yeah, sure, school has kind of shaped that. But in terms of who I am as a person and what I know about myself, I don't necessarily think that school has shaped my identity in that sense. Does anyone else have anything else to add? Any other points? Okay, then we've seen some comments from the YouTube. So just hi to everyone on there. We've acknowledged your comments. There was comments saying how the school system hasn't necessarily the one shoe fits all. Was it one size fits all kind of system is not working? And I think we've kind of established that through this conversation. How everyone else, yeah, there it is. The school system is a one hat fits all system, which doesn't work for every child. So I feel like we've kind of like touched on that. Everyone here is in different points in terms of their educational career and the way they've progressed. So I feel like, yeah, we've acknowledged that. But anyways, we're gonna move on to the next question now, which is higher education relevant for every career path? I feel like we've touched on this question a lot, but let's start with Jonas. Do you think higher education is relevant for every career path?
Just to clarify, by higher education, does that mean uni, or can it also mean degree apprenticeships?
I think it can mean degree apprenticeships as well, because that is like extended education.
Yeah, I'd say no, because there are certain things you can do without having a degree. There are certain skills that you can't read. How do I say this? There are certain skills which you can't measure by a qualification. There actually are some skills out there that you can't. If it's law or something like that, or maybe becoming a politician, it matters what school you go to, uni and stuff like that. That matters. But for other professions, it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm just gonna say I feel that everybody should go and get the highest degree they can in their career, because you might as well do it while you're young. You might as well, because also there's certain people who will be a bit snobbish and be like, how do you not have that degree? Who do you think you are coming to us? So you got to kind of, unfortunately, because I'm not a guy that's like, oh yeah, degree, but I'm still going to go out and get it. And I don't measure people by degrees. I measure people by character and experience, ability, stuff like that. But a lot of people who are the gatekeepers for where you want to go to in the future are going to say, you ain't got the qualifications, go back down for a bit. So I feel that it is relevant, but not for every career path, but still go out and ensure that you get the highest possible degree that you can.
I agree. Aminette?
I think higher education in some form is relevant for every career path. But I do think we need to diversify what higher education is, because I think you get pigeonholed, especially from quite an early age, into the idea that you go to primary school, you go to secondary school, sixth form, and a degree. And I think it's at the point of sixth form and a degree stage that realistically, if people aren't heavily interested in academics or don't have maybe even the aptitude for it, it becomes quite harmful. Because if you've got someone that has an interest in the arts or has an interest in something more vocational like plumbing or electrics, those are good, stable careers that you can not only be very successful at, but also they enable you to run your own business and manage your life in a good way. But I think sometimes people get quite often discouraged from those because it's not the same thing as getting a degree in English or getting a degree in science. And then you end up with people that are doing the degrees. And as much as we have a student loan system, 40 grand is a lot of money to waste when that's not where your heart is. And so I think it's about diversifying what higher education is rather than seeing it as irrelevant for certain types of people, because ultimately an education is an education. And whilst you have the opportunity to attain it, I think it's very important to attain it, like, once again. And I've just seen a comment of many billionaires like Richard Branson didn't go to university. And whilst I understand that, of course, university isn't for everyone, I think certain examples of Richard Branson and Bill Gates dropping out of Harvard aren't always particularly helpful, because those people are one in a million. If you're saying to someone that's 16 years old that, oh, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, that's fine, but that 16-year-old probably might not have even been able to get into Harvard in the first place. And so sometimes I think, whilst I think it's an idea, it also detracts from the fact that you just need to encourage people to do what's best for them, rather than devaluing, and without devaluing education, to do that in the same way, if that makes sense.
Jonas, I saw your hand up. Do you have a response?
Yeah, just, you know what the thing is, I was actually going to disagree with Aminette, but then I was like, no, I agree with what she said, because everybody's different. So in my opinion, when I see people like Jay-Z or Richard Branson or Bill Gates who dropped out and became billionaires, to me, I say to myself, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. Oh, I'm going to do that then. I'm going to be the next one of them. I'm going to be the first Jonas Andrew Phillip. But again, not everybody's like that. And with some people, they don't have the mentality to go out, not to be rude, but they don't have the mentality to go out and be like a Jay-Z or Richard Branson. Just saying. I may not even have the mentality. I don't even know yet. I may generally not. I feel like I do, but I may not. But I'll build that mentality. So I agree with what Aminette said, definitely, because we can't tell someone this. We can't tell people that. They have to tell themselves that. Because if you tell someone that, you don't know how they're going to take it, they may think, oh, okay, cool. But then they're not. Maybe entrepreneurship isn't for them because it's not for everybody. It's what I learned myself. I used to tell all my colleagues who hated the job that I was in, just go start up your own business. I'm going to do that soon. And they were procrastinating on it. And I was like, what are you procrastinating for? But then I realized it's not for everybody. So some people need to go down the school path to get into a job. And jobs aren't bad. I hate this stigma of 9 to 5s being bad and everyone trashing it. It's a bunch of foolishness. 9 to 5s are fine. If someone's happy in a job, leave them, because that doesn't mean they're less of a person than you just because you run a business. So yeah, I definitely agree. So it's up to people to choose their own path. And I feel that although I agree with Aminette and definitely what Tony said, I feel that that's something that we shouldn't tell other people, but let them discover it themselves, and maybe put it out to them and let them see the information, maybe share it with them, but don't tell them to do it.
I feel like in terms of like that idea that these people didn't go to university, I think that it's good information to have. It shows that you don't necessarily have to go to higher education. You don't necessarily have to have a degree, but at the same time, it can't be used as these people didn't get an education, therefore I'm not gonna try hard, or therefore I'm gonna mess around in class, or therefore I don't need to sit these exams. I feel like people like tend to use it as these people didn't do it, so I don't have to do this. I feel like you kind of have to have the kind of foundational information. Like if you don't have literacy skills, if you don't have numeracy skills, then if you want to run your own business, it's going to be quite difficult if you can't do like basic things. You understand what I'm saying? And also linking to the question, I feel like there was a comment that we saw before saying how you kind of need a degree to get into like public sector and things like that. I agree with that, but at the same time, right now I'm studying history, which is a humanities degree, and I'm finding in terms of looking for future career paths and things like that, my degree is not necessarily necessary for to no turn of phrase. It's not necessarily necessary for lots of the things that I want to do, but at the same time, it's teaching me analytical skills. It's teaching me skills in terms of understanding, reading, looking at sources, which is like transferable skills which I can use in any job that I go into. So I feel like in terms of picking something you want to do in the future, or if you want to go to university, or if you don't, I feel like it has to be something you're more passionate about rather than something that you're forced into, or something that is just because everyone said I have to get a degree, I'm just going to pick a random thing. I feel like you should kind of harness your passions and then see where it takes you, rather than just picking something in terms of like, I'm just going to do it because this is the traditional thing to do. But yeah, I also agree with what you said, Jonas, about you were saying how people can kind of not everyone wants to go into like entrepreneurship and things like that. I feel like it's not for everyone, but at the same time it can be a useful like other thing that people can do. I feel like people should always look for different forms of income. But Dominic, do you have anything else to add? Is higher education relevant for every career path?
Like was said before, it's highly dependent on the person, whether they want to forge their future by themselves or they want to use higher education to get a high-ranking job. Depending on whether they plan to work in maybe the government or building their own business, I think that it's really important, and it's also a very good backbone and a support for if what you plan to do fails and you need something to fall back on. But some people don't believe that, and it ends up where they'll end up where they end up. So it's dependent on the person, in my head.
We just got go on, Abigail.
Okay, I was gonna say that higher education, like university, it does depend on your career path. For example, if you are doing something in medicine, you obviously need to get a degree. because you can't exactly hire someone who doesn't know he hasn't who hasn't learnt about the body and all of those stuff. But I feel like other degrees, like I don't know, history, like what you're doing, might not exactly be relevant to every career path, because it just teaches you the skills. And I feel like you could that's kind of what most people go to university for, to learn about these different skills that they can apply to different jobs, these transferable skills like organization, like analytical skills, like research, that they could learn, that I feel like they could learn in other paths, that they don't necessarily need to go to university for that.
We just got a curveball question in the chat. It says, if you could redo 1 year of your school life, which year would it be? That's an interesting question. Does anyone want to go first?
I can go first.
Here, go on, Amunet.
I think for me, if I could redo 1 year, I would redo year 13, because I think school stresses the importance of the jump between year 12 and 13. And as my mother has said, if you can't hear, you must feel. And I certainly felt that one.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was just, I think year 12, I just about managed, and I got through it. And I came out of it the other end with really good grades, which would have meant that I got into my first choice of university. And unfortunately, I didn't realize the gap between those 2 years and how much, and because you're packing, so you're not only packing your end of year, your A-level exams. I was packing in an EPQ. We had to manage university applications. And I think you don't realize how quickly the time goes. And I think if I could go back now, I think I'd enforce a level of structure that I didn't understand and acknowledge was necessary until I was in my second year of my degree, at which point everything was up to me. And I think because with sixth form, sometimes because you're still in a relatively serious school setting, you don't realize how much is being left to the side. And so if I could redo a year of school, I would redo year 13 to make sure that my A-level results were exactly what I wanted them to be, rather than them just being good enough.
Yeah. Jonas, if you could redo a year of school, what year would it be?
I'm gonna be honest. I honestly wouldn't do a single year. I wouldn't. I'm pretty satisfied. I didn't leave school with the best GCSEs, but it's put me in I still put in work after school to put myself in a good position, which I'm very happy and grateful for being in. So if I did, for example, just to throw a little backstory, when I was in primary school, I was in top set for all my classes. By the time I got to year 9, I was in bottom set for a few, and then year 11, I was bottom set for a few. So I was moving up in some, but then moving down in some, because I just didn't really like school. And I would try to start revising and try to become more serious, but there were so many distractions. But honestly, I got the grade I needed to do to get into the higher education I wanted to. I was able to get my apprenticeship. I've been able to start a career in public speaking and all this kind of stuff. I've been able to improve myself as a person. So honestly, all of that built up to me being the person I am today. And I'm very happy with the person I am today and the habits I have and the people I have around me. And if I cared about school, I wouldn't even be on this call with you guys, because I wouldn't have come to the 100. If my behavior was on point in school, I wouldn't have come to the 100. Who knows where I'd be? I wouldn't be in a position. I wouldn't know that I'd be here, but I may not be in it. I may be in a worse position. I may be in a better one. But for me personally, every single year in school led me to become a new person, which has cultivated to who I am today. So I wouldn't do a single year back again. I'm very satisfied.
Okay. Dominic, obviously you've not finished school yet, but if you could redo 1 year of school, which year would it be?
If I was going to redo a year of school to get better grades, I would redo this year, because that knowing how everything would pan out in the grand scheme of things would allow me to be more prepared for GCSEs. To not be since it got cancelled last year around September, it got postponed twice. So I'd know what would happen and how things would happen, so I can prepare myself for what will be coming in the next few weeks. But if it was to prepare for life in general, I would probably do year 9, because that's when I matured a bit and I'll be able to like start prepare myself for A levels and university to start getting that foundation 5 years earlier than what most people would do, maybe around 18 years old.
Okay. Abigail?
I'd probably say I would do my year 11 again, just because I probably didn't think that much about sixth forms, and even though I was applying to different sixth forms, I don't think I was told that much about it, especially considering COVID and stuff. I didn't exactly have the time or ability to go and look at the different places that I wanted to look at. So I feel like I would do year 11 again, not even for the GCSEs, just so I could prepare myself more for year 12. So I do research just so I know what exactly I'm going to be looking at. Just so I know what exactly I'd be looking at. So I wasn't exactly behind, because they expect so much when you first enter sixth form. It's like you're supposed to know all of this, but you don't really know all of that.
Yeah. I think for me, I would redo maybe year 9 or something like that. Just a lower year where you could kind of enjoy school and things really didn't have as much of an impact on your future than the later years. Because I did really good in school. I got good A-level grades. I got good GCSE grades. But I feel like in that you kind of lose the time to have fun at school. I was like, if you're focusing on your education, things like that, you do kind of lose the time to do, like, for example, I play basketball, but if I wanted to, I could have taken it more seriously. I could have gone to like after school basketball clubs and things like that. So I feel like in the time where I had the time, I think those are the years that I would have redone. But at the same time, as Jonah said, I don't really regret anything. I feel like the position that I'm in is a good position. And I feel like everything that I've done in the past has made me into the person that I am today. And I did kind of have time to obviously do the 100 throughout my entire school education and things like that. So I feel, I don't really have many regrets in those sense. But is anyone else want to add to that? Okay, go on, Jonas.
Yeah, just quickly, you know what the crazy thing about what you just said is? There are people from my secondary school who tell me to this day that they wish they had more fun in school. Like, I was one of the people in school that used to mess around in class a bit. Like, I'm not afraid of saying that. I can say that with my hands up. I used to mess around in class in school. But there's so many people that would say, why are you guys always messing around? And they're like, Jonas, man, I wish I was with you guys having a bit of fun in the earlier years, because I took it too seriously. And I was shocked. I was like, what? And guys at home, I'm not saying don't take school seriously, but I'm just saying that right there is something where I think we need to consider sometimes, because we are not going to be young forever. And I said to myself, look, we're in year 7 or 8. Why am I going full throttle now? Let me have a bit of fun for a bit. And especially in our year, Vanessa, because I think across the country, our year was changing curriculum halfway through, like year 10 or something. So I was like, we're not going to be learning this stuff and doing it for our exams. Why am I burning myself out early? That's the kind of way I was thinking of it. But then again, it's kind of still the same stuff you're learning. So it's a double, what do you say, Amina? Again, I want to use your saying. Was it double-edged sword or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, double-edged sword. Double-edged sword. So I just thought that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah. I feel like with the benefit of hindsight, everyone kind of would change a little thing in their school experience, but obviously that's not how life goes. And all of us are in good places right now, which I'm really proud of. Like, everyone has had different experiences and everyone's kind of gone through the system differently and had different experiences, but we're all here right now, do you know what I mean? And I feel like this is a really good position to be in. So the next question, I think it might be the last one because of the timing, is the stigma against the school system in our community justified? And I just want to emphasize the bit on the schooling system. So is the stigma against the schooling system in our community justified? Does anyone want to go first?
I can. Or Jonas. I think ultimately, especially with the recent publication of the race report, although it denies there's existence of institutional racism, in terms of certain experiences I've had, and even just the differences in behavior between white students and black students, I think there is, because you hear the phrase, you have to work twice as hard for half the glory significantly through your life. And I think there's so many situations where, even if it hasn't been my personal experience, I've watched people experience those same things, in terms of, be it the people that get chosen to be head girl and the people that get chosen to be prefect. And even though those decisions aren't necessarily academic ones, when it comes to university application, it can just be the little bit, that little push over the edge. And so I think the stigma is justified to a certain extent, but I think we also have to understand that, especially for, maybe less so for our generation, but especially for our parents' generation, our grandparents came here with very little, and that education was the ultimate tool for social mobility. And if this is the schooling system we have to go through, then it might just be the one we have to work with, because there are definitely schooling systems that work better. For example, in Germany, they split schools into 3 separate types. And so they'll have a vocational school for people that have more vocational interest. They'll have a middle tier system for kids that aren't exactly sure what they want to do. And then they'll have a separate school system for kids that are heavily interested in academics and know exactly what, and are going down that path, whether they've decided or not. And I think in terms of diversifying, that would be pivotal. But also, we have to accept the fact that this is a school system we have, and we have to work with it, because otherwise we're going to be the people that will fall behind. The school system isn't going to wait for us to change. We have to move with it. And so and especially with certain findings of the increase of the amount of exclusions that Black boys go through, we have to make sure we use it for what it is, whether we like the way it works or not.
Okay. Just in terms of these answers, we're going to have to keep it short because we're running out of time. But Jonas, do you want to have anything to add?
Yeah, just quickly, I do agree that it is justified as well, because all the institutional racism and everything that Black people have to go through, and the fact that they deny it and all this kind of stuff like that, it makes sense, because they're thinking, you know what, this is right in front of you. You might as well put 100% into it. But where I kind of disagree is where, for example, I'm always going to bring this up, but people kind of like go out their way to call me and say, why are you leaving school? And I'm like, I'm doing the same thing but getting paid for it. Why is it such a big deal? So that's where I draw the line, because I can get the same qualifications as the people that go to uni while having money management skills, while having money in my pocket, and being able to fund things I want to fund, and even donate to charity. So I have freedom already. That's my opinion on it. But I do feel that the stigma is justified, because a lot of friendships are new as well. So a lot of people, like, for example, my grandparents, they won't understand necessarily, but they have been very understanding of my situation. But not all people's grandparents or people around that age will understand, no matter how much you say to them, look, this is what I'm going to get out of it. They'll still believe in uni regardless. But I do feel that it is justified, especially with the challenges that we have to go through as a community. But what I must say is that should motivate us to do even better in school. When someone says to us, for example, a teacher in my school said to me, when she was just annoying me one time, and I was telling her, can you leave me alone, please? And she said, Jonas, you're Black, you have to work 10 times as hard. And I was thinking in my head, you realize that doesn't mean anything to me. It just means, okay, Jonas, that's even more reason that you should be working 10 times harder than anyone else, because I was going to do it regardless. So if anything, that just motivates me. It doesn't put me down. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Dominic?
I think that institutional racism within the school system is motivated by, depending on the teachers as well as the education itself, because some teachers may have preferences towards specific students, whether that's due to their race or due to personal connections, maybe through their family members, but that could heavily influence the grades that the students are getting, the amount of effort the teachers are putting into teaching specific students, and whether some students are being neglected or not with their education. For me, I've been able to reach out to the teachers that work well with me, that teach me the best. But I know some people that haven't been able to get the best teachers because they don't maybe speak to members of SLT that would move their classes around, to give them the teachers that would teach them the best.
Abigail?
Yeah, I would agree that the stigma against the school system is justified. But I feel like not to be the bad guy here, but I feel like in terms of racism, that yes, we do have to work harder, but I feel like that can kind of apply to everyone, because like what Dominic was saying about how some people have familial connections to people and how they'll favoritize those people. Because I remember in my secondary school, the people that they picked for prefect and head girl, they were all kind of, majority of them were people who had siblings in the school that had high positions or were kind of related to the teachers. So they already knew them. They knew them from childhood. They knew their siblings. They knew their family. So and plus, because they were good at school, mostly because the teachers would help them outside of school as well. They would get talked to a lot, and they would get picked for these good positions. So I feel like it doesn't completely apply to, well, kind of, but we all have to work a lot harder in general. Yeah.
Just quick point on the question. I feel like the stigma against the schooling system in our community, I think it is justified to an extent. I do feel like we definitely have to work harder. I think people of all like non-white students definitely have to work harder, because there are forces against us that are working to kind of push us back. And especially like where I am right now, for example, in Cambridge, looking around, there's not many black people. Like I'm in my college, I go to Clare College, there's like 5 other black people out of a cohort of about 200. Like just looking at that, you've seen why are we in this kind of position, and like what forces against us that are out of our control have kind of made it this way. So I do think that like the stigmas are quite justified, but at the same time, I feel like we're kind of, not everyone, but sometimes we play into the stereotypes or we play into the stigma. So we kind of use it as, oh, the school system failed me, therefore I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. I feel like that could be quite dangerous, because there is a fine line between kind of playing into the stigma rather than recognizing it and being like, okay, cool, the school system is like this, therefore I have to do something slightly differently, or therefore I have to elite the school system, or I have to do something greater or work harder. I feel like there's just a difference in the way we think about it. But the last question we're going to just wrap up is, looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self? We're going to really quick. Okay, so Jonas, what advice would you give to your younger self looking back?
Yeah, I'd say, again, don't play into the stereotype. That's something that I always, from when I was young, I didn't want to play into a stereotype that I knew of. I didn't know about the race stereotype until about college, to be honest. But me being known as so-called the bad kid, even though I was just misunderstood and getting bullied a lot, so I was very upset at school and very emotional due to that. Just somebody explaining to me why you can't be seen as that angry black person or that bad black person in school would have really been beneficial. So I'd say, don't play into the angry black man stereotype.
Dominic?
In all honesty, I probably wouldn't give my younger self advice for preparing myself for the future. I would probably tell them maybe to invest in Bitcoin, or to learn about stuff that like events that would help them in the future, which would be really good if I actually had the opportunity to do that.
Aminette?
I think for me, the biggest piece of advice I could give myself would be to stop coasting, because I think there were certain times through education, especially I think up to about the end of my GCSEs, where I knew I could go into a lesson without studying and get a B on a test. And a B wasn't an A star, but it was good enough. And I think that attitude is what ultimately derailed me when I got to sixth form, because you can't just walk into a classroom in sixth form. You have to put 100% in every day. And so, yeah, I think stop coasting and just give it everything you've got at every point.
Abigail?
I would probably tell myself that I should try new things, because I remember in secondary school, I would think that I would focus mostly on school subjects, and all the people around me, or lots of people around me would be doing all these activities, and I would want to do these things, but I'd think that, I can do them in the future. But I would tell myself that, you're in the future, you're not gonna have as much time as you think you're gonna have. So I would tell myself, don't be afraid to go and try these new things. Don't go and do athletics, go and like swim, or go and join these random clubs that you're interested in, but you feel like you can do later. So yeah.
Just to wrap up, looking back, I would give myself, I think I would say, why not? There was lots of things that I didn't do because I was like, I just can't do that, or I don't have the time, or things like that. As you said, like to kind of develop my passions outside of education. So I think, I would want to be more open to doing things that are outside of the box. But I feel like, as all of us has kind of said, like we're kind of happy with where we are now, but at the same time, there are things that could have been done differently. And there are things that we hope the future generations do differently or better and things like that. But I just want to thank everyone for joining us today on our education talks. Just once again, if everyone could just say their name. So my name is Vanessa Creville. Jonas?
Jonas, Andrew, Philip, and Vanessa, thank you for hosting this. It was done amazing.
No problem. Abigail?
Abigail, and just like to say thank you to all of you guys.
Aminette?
I'm Aminette. Thank you for today. I think it's been really good to have such an open discussion.
And Dominic?
My name is Dominic O'Yaligan, and I'd like to thank the audience for being so interactive.
There was just a quick plug. The next education talk is, I didn't get it, but I think it's in the comment section.
It's the 16th of April.
The 16th of April, there you go. So thank you everyone for joining. This is going to be a video at the end.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
Okay, and how have you found being on the program, the mentoring program of the 100 Black Men? What's its impact been on your life?
Well, the 100's had like a really big impact on my life actually, because I've been doing it since I was about 8, even though I wasn't meant to. That's when I wasn't like that confident or anything. I wouldn't like speaking or anything like that, but now it's easy for me, and really everything just like comes from the heart when I speak. And I've been doing lots of things for the 100, and like my dad's been doing it since 2001. And I think it's like really like awesome.
Okay, and what would you say to other young people about coming to the program?
I think like loads of people should come, because it's really like helped me, and it can help like other young people, because these skills aren't things that you learn at school and stuff like that. So they're life skills that you can use for the rest of your life.
That was little Vanessa. That was literally 10 years ago. So it's so weird looking back, right? Like I would never have thought I would be in the position where I am today. But once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a good Friday evening. Goodbye.